It says it's open. You think it's ready?
I'm thinking yes. And again, now another screen is up in the background. I'm not quite sure what that's going to do. I'm going to turn that one off right now and let's see what happens. Okay, I think that's good. So why don't we go ahead?
Well, I'll get started, and I want to start by welcoming everybody. Good morning. Good morning. A beautiful sunny spring Easter morning to you all. It's so nice to share forums with you. My name is Lorraine. I'm going to read our. I hear a little echo.
Yeah, I'm muting people right now. Yeah, I don't think it's an echo.
Okay, I'm going to begin by sharing the story of Sunday Forum. Sunday Forums have been part of Sunday morning at First Unitarian Society, Milwaukee for 50 years. All scheduling and hosting is accomplished by volunteers, and the forums support our First Church mission. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. This lecture series showcases provocative and sometimes controversial speakers who review topics and issues of the day. Forum topics are the responsibility of the presenter, who share their point of view as formed through their experience and knowledge. Every forum is not intended to express all sides of the topic nor all points of view. Presenters do not receive honoraria. Forums may not always align with the viewpoint of First Unitarian Society, Milwaukee, but are meant to introduce thoughtful topics, which our members may pursue further on their own. And I just want to remind people, we do have closed captioning. You can manage it yourself on your computer. In the lower menu, there's a little box, CC. If you click on that, it offers you the option to hide the subtitles or to add the subtitles. So you can check that. Also, I want to remind people about our forum for next week, April 11th, will be the League of Women Voters of Milwaukee County. And that is presented by Ann Batiza. And she is the vice president of the organization at this time. She's going to explain how the League of Women Voters is more than votes. So there's a lot going on there, and she'll be explaining that. So that's next Sunday. I think that's all. And other than introducing our speaker for today, I'm very glad to be able to, for sharing our speaker today, Sam Goodrich. She's going to be speaking about the program Timeslips. And I first heard about this program 5, 6, 7 years ago. I was working with an older adult program, and I attended a workshop facilitated by Ann Basting. She's the originator of this program, and she has received a MacArthur Foundation grant in 2016 to honor her work. She is very committed to using conversation and creativity to ensure a full life for all older adults. And Sam will explain more about how that's going today. So Sam, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I am going to start by sharing my screen. All right, you can see it okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy to be here with you today. I'll talk about what Timeslips does, but we do provide many different levels of training for all different people who might be involved in some sort of care. And today, I think it's fitting for an Easter Sunday. We're going to have an engagement party. So we add the party to this one because we try and keep it a little bit, a little more exciting and party-like. So I will be asking you from time to time to add to the chat, and we're going to have some conversation as we work our way through this.
what more can we do, doctor? I mean, how else can we really lower the spread? And frankly,
somebody needs to mute themselves, I think.
A month ago, we were talking about.
I'm trying to find that.
We're there. We're already there, which is fantastic. And yet we see these spikes. And I think the spikes are due to a couple of different reasons.
Here, I got it.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Oh, this keeps moving on me. Apologies. So I'll introduce myself a little before I dive into this so you can see where I'm coming from. Again, my name is Sam Goodrich. I'm a Milwaukee native. And I first was introduced to Timeslips at a really important stage of my life. I was a senior in high school when my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And the following year, I went to UWM to study musical theater. And while I didn't handle it well at first, being sort of a teenager who had no experience with memory loss or Alzheimer's disease, I was lucky enough to connect with Ann Basting, who's the founder of Timeslips, as a professor at UWM. And she helped me realize that all of the things I was learning in my theater acting classes were directly applicable to the care that I was able to provide my father, which was a simple shift to make, but it had an extraordinary impact in my life. So ever since, I've been a professional care partner for some time. I've been working on different projects for Timeslips, and I started full-time with them to oversee some projects a couple of years ago, including Telestories, which is our virtual program. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But I'll start by asking all of you what we call a beautiful question. I'll tell you more what a beautiful question is later, but right now I just want you to know that there is no wrong answer. We're going to talk about the question, how do you celebrate a special occasion? You can think about that a bit and add your response either to the chat or unmute yourself and share your answer that way. Ooh, birthday cake. That sounds great, Bruce. What kind of birthday cake?
It varies from time to time, place to place, person to person.
That's true.
Like homemade.
Always, yes. I agree with you. How else might you celebrate a special occasion?
Family.
Family, a meal at our favorite Chinese restaurant, people and food. I mean, people and food, good people and good food, that's a good time right there. What are other ways you might celebrate a special occasion?
Champagne.
Champagne, absolutely. A short visit to a favorite place like the lakefront, absolutely. There are many different ways, just as there's a different birthday cake for every person, there's a different way to celebrate any different occasion, right? Great. Well, you can keep adding it to the chat. I'm going to keep going, but just something to think about. So what we'll do today is learn a little bit more about Timeslips. We're going to then go through a virtual engagement party, and then I'll provide some simple techniques for you to use creative engagement as a way to connect with others, and some resources you can use beyond this forum. So Timeslips has been around for about 20 years. It actually started in Milwaukee with Ann, but we have certified facilitators all over the world. We have certified facilitators in 49 states, and I believe it's up to 20 countries. So this method is being used all over the place, but it started in Milwaukee, and most of the staff lives in Milwaukee as well. Timeslips has taught care partners to replace the pressure to remember with the freedom to imagine, bringing meaning and purpose into the lives of elders through creative engagement. We offer hundreds of prompts and online tools for creative storytelling for people of all ages and abilities. Today, we're going to go through some specific things that will help you with people with memory loss, but our techniques are safe for all abilities and very inclusive, so you can use them in other settings as well. We harness the power of imagination to change the way the world understands aging and dementia. I'm sure you can tell that right by the title of Engagement Party, right? When we hear about Alzheimer's disease, the narrative is often not about a party. So we're trying to kind of shift that narrative and show more of what is there in the person. I just have a quick video to share, which will give you a little more information about what we do.
What is Timeslips? We are a nonprofit inspiring a global movement to bring meaning and joy to late life through creative engagement. Let me show you what I mean. When the changes that come with aging meet the demands of our daily lives, it can be difficult to connect. Even if we want to connect, it can be hard to know how. When we do try to connect, our impulse is to draw on the past. But for people with memory loss, this approach can lead to shame and embarrassment, focusing on who the person was rather than accepting and valuing who they are now. Timeslips offers another approach, to shift from the expectation of memory to the freedom of imagination. In the emotional and symbolic language of the arts, there are no wrong answers. People we thought might be lost to us, we can reach with sound and movement, with words and images. We can find joy again, together, connecting through creativity, one-on-one, at the bedside or kitchen table, or in groups, at libraries, memory cafes, museums, or in assisted living, senior centers, or skilled nursing. Timeslips is fueling a creative care revolution to change the way we think about late life and how we engage with elders, from a time of isolation and loss to a time of growth and meaningful connection. Connect through creativity with Timeslips. Learn more, timeslips.org.
So what is this engagement party? Well, we are having an informal and joyful gathering for anyone who wants to learn how to creatively engage with someone in their life who may be experiencing some level of memory loss. There's no handbook, as it turns out, that you're given when you hear of a friend or family member who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. So we are providing you some positive techniques that you can apply to your relationships right away. At engagement parties, guests will learn simple engagement techniques that create shared moments of imagination with no right or wrong answers. And to help you with this, we'll go through 4 steps. Before I get into the steps, I'm sure many of you have some concept of what dementia is, but we like to kind of start, on the same playing field here. So more older adults than ever before live alone and might experience isolation with the loss of friends or family members who move away or are busy with work. And of course, this has been further impacted by a year of isolation with COVID. But I want to point out that social isolation is not just a mental or emotional. It doesn't have just a social or mental emotional impact, but it also has been determined to have a health risk equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So just to kind of underline the impact that can have. So dementia is becoming the new normal. Worldwide, there's about 50 million people that have dementia, and there are nearly 10 million new cases each year. While there's no cure, there is hope in prevention through delaying symptoms as long as possible. This could be through diet, education, exercise, meaningful social networks, and providing all older adults a sense of continued purpose. Dementia is a condition that causes neurocognitive changes, making it difficult but not impossible to express oneself. And it is not the end of a person's value or their experience as a human being. So those 4 easy steps I was talking about. Step 1, leaning into your creativity. So when you are with a friend or a family member who struggles to remember information, more often than not, our impulse is to distract them or go towards fact or memory, trying to help them sort of trigger those memories, those shared experiences that you had in the past. Remember when we went to, remember when we did this. That impulse towards memory is understandable, but it can prove frustrating to both sides, both care partners. So if someone can't respond, they might feel embarrassed, ashamed. And again, the care partner might feel frustrated. At Timeslips, we invite you to use creativity to shift from the expectation of memory to the freedom of creativity and imagination. So who here identifies as creative? I see some videos. You can raise your hand if you're creative or, okay, great. So creativity is an innate human characteristic, and we believe that everyone has the capacity for creativity. And I think there's that understanding that creativity is sort of reserved for the professional artists, the people who sing opera on a stage, the people who have a gallery space with their paintings being shown. But creativity, that's sort of what we call the big C creativity. People who are not artists for a living or for a hobby can still have that lowercase c creativity, which can be organizing a spice rack or finding a new way to get to your favorite restaurant or singing in the shower. There's many, many different ways. And I'd like to take a second to sort of do a creative inventory. And if you could all take a second to enter in the chat how you are creative in your everyday life. Just take a second and think, what ways might you be considered creative? Bernice writes books and poems. Excellent. Often writing articles. Excellent.
Using puns.
Using puns. Absolutely.
Designing activities with my grandchildren.
That's a great one. Yes, absolutely. It takes some creativity to entertain children. Absolutely. Wrapping gifts, of course, writing letters, making changes to recipes. Oh, cooking is very, very creative. Even if you're making a simple dish, it can be very creative. Excellent. Well, one definition we like to use is from Gene Cohen, and it is adding something new to the world that has value. We're going to go into some of our core concepts, and while there are more concepts that we have that can be accessed through our full training, we're going to go over some that can be readily available to you in using creative conversations. So yes, and is the golden rule of improvisation. So of course, if you've seen any Whose Line Is It Anyway, or any sort of comedy show that has that live improvisation, they're always using that yes, and. But it applies to caring as well. And conversating with people that might be experiencing memory loss, because it asks you to respond to the person you're caring for as they are now, not who they used to be. And you do that by accepting and affirming their contribution. So the yes is accepting their contribution, and you affirm it by adding to that contribution. We'll have plenty of examples of this, but just there's a few slides to get you aware of yes and beautiful questions. So I mentioned a beautiful question at the top. How might you celebrate how might you celebrate a special occasion? And a beautiful question is one that opens up a shared path of discovery. So it's open-ended. It cannot be answered with a yes or a no. And that shared path of discovery is key. You're allowing yourself to live in the present moment, which is where people with memory loss tend to live. And you are both opening yourself to wonder by being in that moment together. So the questions can be simple ways of reframing conversations, or they can be profound. But the core of what makes a beautiful question is that it's open-ended and has no right or wrong answer. It can also of note, it can be answered with a memory or a recollection, but it doesn't have to. They never are memory centric. So creative storytelling. Timeslips uses a variety of prompts to engage people in creative conversations and imagine stories together. And now we're going to practice some of these core concepts by imagining a story. So we are going to use this fun image. We love this one at Timeslips. We love using animal pictures, but there are hundreds of other pictures on our site. And this is our traditional storytelling method. So I'm going to ask some questions, and please answer your responses in the chat. Rather than sharing it on your mic, just for this exercise, so I can see them all in one place. So we'll start with, what do you think is going on here? What would you like to say is happening here? They are communicating. The penguins are discussing climate change. Did you vote for Trump? Maybe they're planning a party. Okay, so I like that. They're all communicating. They could be talking about climate change, who they voted for, planning a party, which could be a political party or a party. They're discussing what to do next. Okay, so what do you think they want to do next when they're done communicating with each other? What are their plans? They're discussing what to do next. What will they do next? Lost in trying to find South Pole. Relax in the sun, planning their family. Okay, absolutely. They could go look for some snow, some ice and snow. I have a fish stuck in my throat. Can you get it out? So I wonder, we're talking about these penguins. I think it's about time we maybe give them a name. What do we want to call them? No wrong answers. What do we want to call these penguins? Priscilla and Peter. Maybe Alice and Ralph. Let's jump in the sea. Excellent. So Priscilla and Peter, or Alice and Ralph, maybe Claire and Arthur. Champ and Major, all great names. So I wonder, how do we want to say they met each other? What is their relationship, I guess. How do these penguins know each other? Blind date? Wilbur and wild anemone. So they could have met from a blind date. Any other ideas? They meet once a year at this island. Could be. Could be. So I'm going to read back what we have so far. They are communicating. The penguins are discussing climate change. Did you vote for Trump? They are planning a party. Maybe they're discussing what to do next. They could be lost and trying to find the South Pole. Next, they want to relax in the sun, maybe plan their family. They might go look for some ice and snow. One says, I have a fish stuck in my throat. Can you get it out? Their names might be Priscilla and Peter, Alice and Ralph, Claire and Arthur, Champ and Major, or Wilbur and wild anemone. They might have met via a blind date, and they meet here once a year on this island. Okay, what are they going, if they come here once a year to this island, that sounds sort of like a special occasion. What might they do on their visit to the island? It's their honeymoon. Could be. They help each other find food and they go out to eat. Maybe they dance a special fish ritual. I was going to say, if they're going out to eat, finding food, what kind of food do these penguins eat for a special occasion? We're talking their honeymoon here. So what might a penguin eat on a special occasion? Refried squid. All right, not worms. No, not worms. Excellent. Well, for sake of time, I'm going to keep going, but you can see how we could be talking about these penguins for quite a long time. What did you think of this exercise? And you can let me know by taking your audio, your mute off as well. But any thoughts from this?
Fun.
Fun, that's good. We have another fun in the chat. So I like to demo it because we always joke at Timeslips that we're more of an experience, more of a feeling. It's hard to explain what we do until you experience it yourself. And I think you'll feel that too before you're able to try this with someone else. But even if people are beyond words, you can still use movement and sound to connect. This is easier to do in person, but you can ask reframe a question. If they're going out, let's see, I'm trying to think of something. Well, we said that they met there once a year. We might say, how do you think a penguin might greet another penguin? And you can ask for a movement or a gesture. What would that look like? So you can kind of tweak some of these questions to meet different ability levels as well. You might ask for a sound rather than a word. So there's many different ways to make this as accessible as possible. If we had more time, I'd go into that further, but keep going. So we use the beautiful questions, and I used yes and by coming up with questions based on your responses. So hopefully that gives you a better example of how to use it in action. And we also used another important tool, which is repeating answers verbatim to echo and affirm each response. This is a little different when you're in person and you can echo it in the same way. So I had to sort of guess people's inflections, but in person you might echo in that way. And we call that proof of listening. I'll share another story that happened with a different group. I believe this group was in Detroit. And they use the same image. It just goes to show you that no group has ever done the same story twice. So him and her, it's really nice. He is saying, do you want to go down to the water? He's going to stay with her every day, probably. Maybe they're looking at the stars. They're in awe. One has their feet in the water, dipping their toes. We're just going to leave them alone as they look so peaceful. If there are people there, they need to be on the lookout. They're not going anywhere. They'll be there together for a long time. They look peaceful and they might say, let's stay together. It might be Alaska or even the Detroit Zoo. Maybe they snuck out of from the zoo and one said, we made it. They will stand there looking at the water and will be peaceful until someone comes looking for them. Perhaps there's a message scratched in the snow, and the message says, stay here forever and ever. Amen. So we used a visual prompt. We use an image for a prompt, but beautiful questions can be a prompt all on their own. And we're going to, I'm just seeing what the time is. Let's see. Yeah, I'll do a quick demo of this because I think this is important. It's something that you can use on the phone, which we're still using quite a lot of in this time of continued physical distancing. So if I could have a volunteer unmute themselves, I'll be easy on you, I promise. Can I call on you, Lorraine?
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
So I am going to ask you a beautiful question. I will say, if you could look outside of your window right now and see anything you would like to see, what would it be?
I would like to see rolling green hills of Ireland with sheep on them, munching and relaxing.
Rolling green hills of Ireland with sheep on the hills?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what are the smells of Ireland? If you, maybe let's say you opened your window and you could, I'm sorry, my computer's going haywire. If you could open the window and let in the smells of Ireland, what might you smell?
It's usually raining, so probably some moist soil and grass and that kind of wetness and freshness. Fresh air. If it's in the west, it could be the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So if you would look out your window, you would like to see rolling hills of Ireland with sheep on the hills. There's usually rain, so you might smell some fresh air and some wetness of the soil. And we could keep going for a long time, but I wanted to show you what it would be like to use just a question as a prompt. So thank you, Lorraine. I appreciate it.
Sure.
It's fun to get outside of what we've been looking outside of our window for the last year.
A nice moment.
We'll go to Ireland just for a little.
Okay.
All right. So if you're leading this by phone, and I did have Lorraine's video up here and she could see me, but if you were to turn off the video and lead it by phone alone, just a note to be more aware of not just what you're saying, but how you're saying it. There aren't visual cues. So that's just important to make sure that you can repeat it in the same inflection and show some enthusiasm through your vocal tone. And silence does not translate into a lack of interest. We're all very often uncomfortable by silence, but it can take up to a minute for people with Alzheimer's or dementia to fully respond. So allow time. They might just be thinking, finding the right words. You can always find a new way to ask the question in case you maybe need to reword it. But be sure to give time and find comfort in that silence. Also, we encourage you to provide reinforcements, positive reinforcements, and reminders that there are no wrong answers. When you're working one-on-one, it can often seem like, well, I'm getting tested. This is like an interview. So just keeping those reminders throughout is really important. We did that. All right, step 2, creating meaningful moments. So to do a creative conversation, you first invite the person into the moment with you. You'll ask a beautiful question, echo what you hear using proof of listening, and ask another question from their response. Yes, and. Mm-hmm. So I like the invite part's the only one we didn't really go over. And that is always nice to set up the conversation, not so much in a way, you don't even have to set it up saying, we're going to create a big story today. It can be really easy and conversational and organic. There's less pressure that way, but still take that time to say, I'm going to ask some questions, but there are no wrong answers, just so the pressure is immediately alleviated of the person. And you set up this sort of special shared moment. So if you are caring for someone, I want to give a few examples of how to use these techniques in moments of care. So this might have happened to someone on this call even, it's pretty common, but let's say you're out to lunch with someone who is struggling to remember the name for what we know as the ketchup bottle. Rather than telling them the name or pressuring them to come up with the name, oh, you know what it's called, you know. Instead, say, let's give into imagination instead of memory. So what do you want to call it? Someone might respond red bottle, whatever they call it. Red bottle, okay, well, here's the red bottle. Throughout the rest of lunch, you can refer to the ketchup as the red bottle and keep it playful and just open, right? If someone is saying my foot hurts, if you are visiting a loved one and they're sort of fixated on their foot hurting, instead of trying to distract them or kind of dismiss it, you can say, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but if your foot could talk, what do you think it would say? And it might say, I'm tired. It might say, I'm sore, or I need to sit down. Whatever it is, I'm tired. Okay, what can we do to help wake your feet up? So whatever it is, you're just sort of reframing that moment and allowing them space to express themselves in a different way. So now that you know a little more about creative engagement, you are ready to shift from memory to imagination. We mentioned that the natural impulse is to go towards fact and memory, but learning to shift from imagination can take time. It's so important, but do be patient with yourself as you relearn how to communicate with open-ended questions. It certainly took me a long time to reframe that, since we're almost taught to communicate in a more memory-centered way. So be patient with yourself, but know that this small shift that you're doing can contribute to a larger effort of ending isolation and loneliness to those in late life who might be experiencing dementia. So we call this the Creative Care Revolution, and we would love for you all to join us. It's a simple way to engage older friends and family members who might have memory loss, even those who don't. And I'm going to provide a few resources for you to, in case you'd like to deepen your practice. So our website is timeslips.org. On there, we have plenty of things for you to take a look at. I might suggest that you look at the Friends and Family page under Services or the Resources page. We have lots of different free materials, especially for friends and family. We keep that all free and as accessible as possible so that the people who need it the most have that direct access. This is our Creativity Center under the Resources, which is at the top of the page. And I would suggest here, from what we went over today, you could take a look at making up a story or asking beautiful questions. Both, you know, the images that lend themselves to great story making and the beautiful questions. Very quickly, I'm sure you'll feel comfortable making your own, but it's a good place to start. There are some pictures. Once you log in, you have to log in to access the images and the questions. It's a free account, but you can also add your stories to our website here. You can invite a friend to collaborate. You can just print it off and use it in your own time. And I also mentioned the Friends and Family page, which is under Services. And we have a free 45-minute Timeslips Friends and Family training module. So if you have someone that wasn't able to make it today, or someone you have in mind that might benefit from these tools, we spent a lot of time on making this training module, and I think it's fun and playful and interactive. So feel free to pass that on to anyone you think might benefit from it. On that page, we also have engagement party materials. We kind of look at this as a Tupperware party without the Tupperware, without trying to sell anything. So if you are inspired by what you learned today and you'd like to host an engagement party for your close group of friends or family members, please feel free to do so. We have all of the materials necessary ready for you to download. There's a host guide that will guide you through some of the questions that might come up, some of the things that we went over. So please feel free to use that or share that as you need. And we also have, I have a prototype here I wanted to share, but we have an imagination kit coming out that is really just beautifully designed. And it comes with a journal for you to write answers down. It comes with all of these large print cards with beautiful questions. There are follow-up questions on the back. These are really fun, playful, a bunch of different images. All of these images are not on our website, so they're unique to the kit, but they're just, it's a really fun way to, we didn't want it to look like something that would normally be associated with memory care. So we wanted to keep it fun, something that any age or ability might look at and want to be a part of. So those are coming out soon. I'll throw the link in the chat before we say goodbye, but you can pre-order those. That's the only thing I'm trying to sell today, I promise.
That's okay. That's okay.
I wouldn't even pitch it if I didn't think it would be useful. So leaning into creativity, creating meaningful moments, shifting from memory to imagination, and then taking that next step to join the creative care revolution. That's what we went over today. I went over all of that. And if you have any questions for me directly, you can email me at sammy@timeslips.org. And that's all I have for you.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to leave some time for questions. So if I rush past anything that you do have more questions for, I'm happy to take those questions now.
How do you get your funding?
It depends on the different projects that we have. So we have projects that are artist centric. I just finished one with 25 nursing homes in Wisconsin, which was a state funded grant through the DHS. But we also have local funding, foundations, largely grant funding. And then there's also some paid content on our website, the full training and certification, things like that.
Wow. Are there any other questions or comments?
A question. When you're working with someone who is a stroke victim and possibly there are cognitive issues, how can you do this type of thing? I'm thinking of my own father, and part of his stroke was that he had fluent aphasia, so you couldn't understand what he was saying at all. But I'm wondering how this might be modified for a stroke victim without speech capacity.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm happy to go into it a little more. One of the people I cared for also had aphasia, and it's a lot of trial and error, I think. But I will say that that's a chance for you to rephrase questions, to maybe ask for movement or gesture or sound as a response. So, or if the individual I was caring for had 2 words that she would often use. So I might use that as sort of a response. But let me see, what question could I use? Even the one we opened with, how do you celebrate a special occasion? Maybe in that instance, you shared a way that you might celebrate a special occasion, and ask them what that looks like. So let's talk about eating cake, because I love talking about eating cake. What might it look like to eat cake, or eat your favorite cake, right? Because this is your dad, and you might have specific details. And by asking it, like, what would that look like? You're able to ask for a response that is more of a gesture, or more physical and less verbal.
Does Timeslips still do any theater work?
We do. I'm currently working with several artists through the Telestories program, and that got a lot of backing over the last year since everything is remote. But we pair artists with elders living at home over the phone, and the artists are trained in Timeslips, and they're trained in how to do this remotely over the phone. And they lead them over the course of several weeks to a creation of something, some artistic output. So there's different ways. We're working with a theater group in Detroit that will be doing that work, and I think that will look a little bit more theatrical. But the last year, I mean, we are limited with a lot of that sort of work. But we love working with artists, and that's a big part of what we do.
Do you ever use visual art with people?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And at that, you can even use visual art as prompts. I know Mark was talking about at the beginning of this going to, was it the Wisconsin Arts Museum? But going to a museum, you can start asking questions about the paintings on the walls as well. Or maybe you do some visual arts work together, and that leads to being its own prompt for conversation. All the world's a prompt.
And how did you get into this, Sam?
Well, I'm a musical theater kid myself, so I met Anne through UWM studying musical theater, and was sort of living in that intersection of healthcare by being a care partner, and arts. So we're at that intersection right there of arts and healthcare. So it was an easy transition for me. And now I run the Telestories program and a few other projects as well.
Sam, it's Lorraine. Do you have programming for nursing home type assisted living, senior apartment kind of thing? Do you work with the activity director there, or how could that be on a regular basis available to people at that kind of setting?
Yeah.
When things open again?
Yeah. I as I was saying, I just finished a 2-year program where we were providing our organizational training to 25 care communities in Wisconsin. And the last year was very difficult, of course, but we were still able to make sure that we could provide them the bare essentials to lighten their load, to deepen the engagements they were able to have, even if they were shorter than before, even if they were one-on-one instead of a group. But in general, yes, we do have an organizational training that a care community could purchase, and we train many of their staff members. We have an in-service for everyone, because we believe that while our main contacts are the activities personnel, it has to be a full transformation. So we try and at least give the bare minimum key concepts to even janitorial services, people who are in food services, CNAs, nurses, because any opportunity for connection could be made more positive with some creativity. Dennis has had his hand up for a while. I'm sure it's getting sore.
Dennis. I know, doesn't he? He looks tired. Okay, Dennis, can you ask your question?
Not so much a question, but just want to thank you for these great ideas. It reminded me when I visited a dear friend several years ago, before she died, who was in a memory care unit, and just how frustrated I was trying to talk to her. But it was a lot of what you said about trying to remember things from the past and so on. And this idea of engaging in a creative way, because this woman had a great mind and was a great reader. And there's so much I think I could have done with her using these ideas you presented. So thank you so much.
I'm really glad to hear that. I had a similar experience having that shift with my father, and seeing other people around me and my family not catch on to that, and how much more difficult it was for them. Really, it's as much for the care partner as it is for the elder. So I hope you're able to use it, Dennis.
I think it also really encourages a sense of humor.
Yeah,
which can really help lighten the load, as we say.
Absolutely. And I'll point out, just almost as a devil's advocate, that sometimes the questions can be a little more serious, and that's okay too. We don't want to live in this false reality where everything is sunshine and roses, but we want to see that person for who they are now. So sometimes that response might be a little less humorous, but that's okay too. It's still positive because you are seeing them as who they are in that moment.
That's a really good reminder, Sam, because people may have thoughts in their head that they can't really express. And if you could help them bring them out, especially if you know the person, you could kind of prompt them in directions that you know they sometimes need to talk about. So that's a really good reminder. Yeah.
Good.
So if someone wants to work with Timeslips, like do some of this work, is there a process for that?
Yeah, here, I just put the imagination kit in the chat, but Barbara, could you say like in what capacity would you hope to
Oh,
use this?
be one of the leaders, for example, in working with some of these care communities, et cetera.
Sure. I would suggest if you're hoping to pursue leading these stories, maybe going into different care communities and doing these stories as an outsider activity, which I've done many times. I look forward to doing it again. I would suggest considering taking our full certification then. It goes into all of the different additional concepts which can really help form that storytelling session, especially with a group setting. Today and our family and friends resources are more one-on-one, but doing the full training and certification helps you with that group work. And then you work with a lead trainer too. So if you go through that, I'd be happy to be your trainer for that.
And that's all online and you're on your website about how to sign up for that?
Yep, I'll send a couple more links here. So the individual training and certification. And then I'll put the friends and family one in the chat as well. And if you're not able to get the link in time, make sure you at least jot down my email so you can reach out and I can help you with that.
Okay, well, you don't see any other hands up. I think we're lots to think about. I think people are thinking and planning how they're going to next meet with their friend or family member.
Good, yeah.
It's very nice, Sam. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes.
And bye. Yes, bye, and thank you. We thank you very much. Wonderful work.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Okay, you too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Happy Easter.